All right. So, hey everyone, hope you're all doing well today. Thanks for taking the time to join me and a very special guest we have on the show today. Honored that he is taking the time to share his wisdom and insight with not only myself, but for everyone watching and the whole Saastro community. All right. So my name is Shannon Agarado from Saastronautics. Welcome to the 4th episode of SaastroTalks, a series where we'll be reaching out to professionals and experts in their industries in order to provide valuable information for our community, aka you guys watching right now. So today joining me on the screen is the CEO and, as he states, the lost and founder of Sales.Rock, an all-in-one sales enablement platform. Please give Carsten Broich a warm welcome to talk about the tactics for every state of a buyer's journey in B2B sales. How are you today, Carsten?
Early morning, Shannon. So the 7 hours time difference, but I think we went through this and really excited about the next hour.
I'm super excited to learn more from you. And, grab your water, and everyone watching, grab your pen and paper. I know that you'll have a lot of questions towards the end of this presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to give you the spotlight. I'll turn on the presentation now so you can control it on your end, okay?
Cool.
Is that fine with you?
Shannon.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. So during the next probably 30 to 35 minutes, we're going to go through some of the tactics that I have learned during the last 10 years of sales. So what we'll be starting with to go through the agenda is we're going to look at from pipeline to bow time. So what has changed in the last 10 years in terms of not just the pipeline thinking, but more going towards the bow tie. We're going to be looking at ideal customer profiles, what kind of attributes we can use to define them, why they are useful, and how you can use them. Different paths and stages along the buyer journey. We'll be looking at some of the sales triggers, and then with that, looking at some ways of hyper-personalization to use what we learned before, and then we'll have some space for the Q&A. So just to get started, small background about me. I've been doing sales for around 10, 11 years. Right after, during, I think, my second year of university, I set up my first company. And with that one, we're doing around 2 million euros by now. It's fully bootstrapped, so no investment, nothing. Salesforce I started around 4 years ago on a really small scale. And 2 years ago, we started scaling this one up. With that one, we have around 2,500 users. Total by now, we have actually 60 employees and clients in 215 countries. Actually, in terms of data-driven sales, there are two things that you can do. You can look at contact-based sales, and you can look at account-based sales. Looking at the audience we're talking to, most of the things you'll be talking to as an agency is likely contact-based sales. So you will focus on an individual decision maker. You will know very clearly who's your ideal decision maker. It might be the managing director. It might be someone responsible from the marketing, a sales team, or an IT person. The nice thing with contact-based sales is you just have to deal with a single person, which means shorter sales cycle, and you can just focus on an individual within that organization. The other thing, which we'll not touch today, is really account-based sales. When you go into more enterprise sales, longer sales cycle, you need to think of who are the decision makers, who are the influencers, who are blockers. You might need to reach out to different people, ensure that you get buy-in from different teams within the company, and often it requires working as a team, which means not just you as a salesperson might have to do the sale, but maybe marketing or some other technical person might need to get him in there. I think something which happens often is we need to go away from just the funnel thinking, even if you're an agency. So you have your target list, you need to engage a person, and then you can close them. But then really important is to grow them. So I think what the change that has happened really in the last 5 to 10 years is not just to stop at, where you close a client, but it's really important, how can you grow them? You might be able to just get a client in for a small project or for really a small part of your SaaS segment. So you target them, then, it's not just immediate closing, but you do a lot of nurturing, of educating them, engaging them. So like webinars, as we're doing here, landing pages, multi-channel outreach. So the collaboration between sales and marketing is really more important than ever. And I think if you look at, for example, Saastronautics as an examples, you can see how there's outreach, but you can see the different kind of landing pages that have been set up, activity in social media, webinars. So I think this is really important to like bring in new clients, but also to grow existing clients who can learn more, and actually they would learn more of your services. Once you have them closed, it could be a discovery call. It gets really important to grow them. I think the biggest issues companies are having is really it costs a lot of effort to bring a client in, but then if you don't grow them, if they churn, then this is where most of your revenue you would be losing. So a focus on growing them is really important. For that, some of the stages that how the bow tie looks. So previously, most of us are usually familiar with a funnel. So you bring a client in, you might have a demo, and then you close them. So to close them is at commit. In most of SaaS and even with agencies, you can do a model where, for example, you have two things where actually leads come in: marketing development representatives. So those are mostly inbound leads, and at the same time, SDR, sales development representative. It could be, if you're an agency, that you might do the sales yourself. It could be that you have a dedicated person. So we'll be looking at that part of the funnel, and probably also a bit of the account executive part. What you should not forget is the onboarding. Even when you have an agency that you're onboarding a client, you're setting up a website. Important to have the customer success manager or someone who takes care after sales, and maybe an account manager who can further increase MRR or even the lifetime value of a customer. If anything in here is not is clear, feel free to just drop comments. So I'll be looking at this. Sharon will interrupt me if anything comes up as well. But so this thinking is really important, to not just stop at the commit, but really use existing clients, figure out where they might have bottlenecks, and then grow existing clients further. It's a lot easier to grow revenue from there. Something else which is important is personalization outreach. I think we're at the stage where, especially now in times of a pandemic, where, for example, cold email or face-to-face, cold calling or face-to-face is really, really difficult. So a lot of the context or a lot of new business that you're coming in goes via email, goes via social media, goes via LinkedIn. So important here on one level is the level of personalization and the volume that you want to do. You could reach out to everyone in one-on-one email. You will get a massive amount of personalization. You can really target, do the research, but on the other hand, it takes ages to do this kind of thing. On the other hand, you can do volume, where you just email everyone, send out 20, 30,000 emails. But that would mean no personalization likely. You might easily be recognized as spammer. So important is to find a level where you are in between. You don't do one-on-one, but you might select specific audiences of a couple of hundred people based on specific ideal customer profiles you've created. You can really personalize the content you're having, and then use an automated or semi-automated outreach via email, LinkedIn, and then also retargeting. So this is, I think, what we want to get towards. And let's take a look at like how we can actually define those ideal customer profiles. So when we onboard new SDRs, we always go through the same kind of profiles, our ideal customer profile. And it's something, even after a couple of months, we've seen it. For some SDRs, it's not really clear who are our clients, where are they based. So what kind of industries are we targeting? It could be industries could be defined by a LinkedIn industry. It could be defined by an industry code that they're using. It could be a Facebook tag that they're using. It could be a Google Maps. So there are plenty of things where you can take your data from. The size of the business is a really important one. For example, with Sales.Rock, we don't have all the integrations yet for enterprise clients. For example, we don't have Salesforce integration yet. And we know if we go into enterprise segment, they will ask us for these kind of integrations. So that's why when we when we do the onboarding, anything beyond 250 employees, it's likely very difficult to us to get into. On the other hand, if we want to grow substantial revenue, ideally we want to target teams which have 5 to 15 people in sales, because then we can onboard them, we can onboard the whole team, we can sign up a contract of 6 or 12 months. So having agencies with just a few people might not be relevant and might not be our ideal customer profile, because we would do onboarding. It's time intensive. If they churn after 2 or 3 months, we have spent too much time in there. So size is really important, and you can define size based on actually their LinkedIn profile. You might get information from their website. You might see the revenue that the company has. It might be the web traffic. So, for example, Alexa rank might be an important one to track how much traffic they're getting. So these are really important indicators. And size can really be defined by your use cases. It doesn't just need to be employees or revenue size. Location is important. If you are like a brick and mortar store, then you might be looking something in your neighborhood, but location could also be your country. It could be a language that's being spoken. It could be your region in terms of a country. It could be a continent. So that can be defined as well. Ideal customer profile could also be the function in the hierarchy. For example, if we would target a team with, for example, 10 people, then we might want to target the managing director, because he might be the one that does the decision. But then with Salesforce, if we want to target people who are in companies of, let's say, 50 to 250 people, it's not the managing director who is actually doing the decision on which software or which data source to buy from. So then it's really important to set up ideal customer profiles where you have a combination of the company, but also the contact. So it could be a VP, it could be a director, but then also the department. Is it a marketing team? Is it in a sales team, IT? Often from a job title, you can see directly where they're in. So what we try to do is we try to see a job title either from the website or from LinkedIn, and then we define how high someone is based and where on a horizontal line is in which department. So those are some of the attributes that you can go, but you can go beyond that. You can even think about an ideal customer profile and think more like, what is his goals, his personal goals, his company goals? What is he trying to achieve? Personally, he's new in the company. He wants to prove himself. He wants to reach 30% increase in revenue. Or as an IT person, he wants to have ensure that he can really go digitalization. So think about these things as well, because these things you can later put into your pitch, into the cold outreach. So it's an exercise we're doing as well with the salespeople, where we don't just define the audience in terms of segments, but really also feeling what are his pain points. For example, a client could be using too many software, too many issues at the same time. Think about you an LTD side. Like Saastronautics, and you want to be reaching out to startups. What are their pain points? Maybe raising capital or funding in initial stage is one of the pain points they're having, and this is something you can use for targeting them in your outreach. You can think about trends and technologies they're using. For example, from the website, we would take information. Are they using WordPress? Are they having an outdated WordPress site? Are they using a specific CRM? Have they installed a competing SaaS solution? So all these kind of things are really nice, because these things you can use in your outreach. The last thing are fears. What is someone afraid of? Okay, a salesperson might be afraid of not reaching the target. He might be afraid of not being recognized. He might be afraid of being stuck with an old system, not being outdated. He might be stuck with all the other people are getting used to new technologies. I'm left behind. So those are really things that's important to take into your account. How do we define an ideal customer profile? So first, we usually start with the company level. In our case, the company is located in which region, working in which industry. It might be a company which is currently recruiting, for example, which is a nice variable, because they are growing. They're having a sales department between 3 people, of more than 3 people. They're using WordPress, and they have, for example, 50 to 250 employees. Then you can think about the job title. He's in sales, he's a manager, and he's also located in, for example, the same country. The goals we talked before. Someone might want to be promoted to director. So if you target new hires within a company, you could say, hey, how you want to improve yourself in the first 6 or 12 months with the solution I'm having, you can ensure like you can crush your targets, and probably like you get promoted. Pain points, working, for example, on too many platforms, finding contacts, verifying data that's inaccurate, reaching out manually, and then fear, for example, technology is being left out. So the exercise that we are doing is the following. We set up really our products and services. How are people gaining from our products? What kind of pain we are taking away? And then we connect it to the ICPs. So you can create different ideal customer profiles. It's not just one, but you will have multiple. You can ask every team member or do yourself, set up different ideal customer profiles, and then ideally between the two, you should find a match. Does what I offer really match with my offering? It means that you will see that sometimes the gain creators might not match with any of the ideal customer profiles you are having. The pains might not always match. So this is a really good exercise. And this is something we're doing, and we're spending a lot of time during onboarding of our SDRs, because we see if we don't do this really, as a salesperson, you cannot ask the right question. You might be offering something which is really completely irrelevant to what your client is after or your target is after. So that's a really important thing to do. And this is something even while you develop, do it every 3 or 6 months, even do it with the team. It also helps understanding IT people, marketing people, to really understand what's the value proposition, how does it connect with what actually we are looking for in our clients. So that's important, because these kind of messages, even the marketing team needs to know and understand what should they post, what's the content, what is the pain, to really connect with the audience that you're trying to connect. Here are some examples that I put together. And this is not taken from Sales.Rock, but this could be something that you can take from Google. It could be something that you can take from Facebook when you search. It could be coming from Salesforce, from your CRM when you have the data in. If you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, this kind of information is available. So thinking about what kind of job titles, where they're located, are there any specific industries, variables like monthly tech spending. If you have a company that, for example, based on their website, they're not spending anything on SaaS solution, it doesn't make sense to target them, because probably there's no budget that they have. If you know they're already spending 500 euros, 1,000 euros on SaaS solution, then they might have budget for your solution as well. The same for the website. If it's an outdated website, you have a really good way of pitching in. If you see they have specific plugins installed, then that's nice. Company size, LinkedIn profile, these kind of things, you can target them. What we can do afterwards is really, if you think about your ideal customer profiles, you can think about your industry that you're reaching out, and then feel free to ask questions. Or, okay, what are ways that I can target this kind of industry? So we'll park this for the Q&A for later. Here's the sales process, for example, how it would look like. We would find leads from Sales Navigator, from a B2B database, but also scraping data from Google Maps, from Facebook, from websites. All of this is possible. It can be done via a tool you're using, a Chrome extension. So that's where your data is coming from. The next thing in a lot of cases is drip campaigns. You can use LinkedIn automation. In that, you can implement hyper-personalization. We go into that into more. Important is to really not just have an email, but in many cases understanding or segmenting your clients into where they're based, what are their pain points, the technology, because these things should go into the email. Once actually you have them engaged, you can look at triggers. We'll be looking into triggers later. How can you monitor companies and to understand a company hierarchy? So some things now more into sales. Cold emailing. I think if I look at the tools that have been released recently with lifetime deals, there's a lot going into cold emailing. Here's some things which I have been using, and this is just things that I have implemented, which has been working well for me. Keep emails really, really short, especially the first email. I'm getting a lot of emails often with people giving me introducing themselves with their first name, telling them everything about their company. Really ask a question, keep it short. 4 or 5 lines is completely sufficient. That's how I usually would get replies in. If someone sends me a whole page, no way I would reply. And I'm pretty sure all of us have been getting these kind of emails. So really keep it short. That's a good one. Inda, good questions on the guide, which enlists a comprehensive list of filters, is something that we are working on. And as part of when we are launching version 2, where we'll be looking at really what kind of attributes you can be using. And I'll take a mental note as well for marketing team to put this together. So great suggestion for a guide to the document. I think we can do a follow-up on this one here with list of filters that can be used in terms of technologies. With Inda, we've been talking about quite some ways of how segmenting can be done. So this is something I think is really interesting, maybe as an extra webinar, maybe as a blog post on how you can segment. We go through it at a later stage where I will go through it in some minor details. So we'll pick this up. Hyper-personalization is really important. I think now that we have Inda here, I think hyper-personalization with images is a great thing. I'll showcase later an image that we've been using via NextWeave as well. Making use of data points like job title, company attributes, recent events, is really important. That's why the list should only be 200 or 300 people. It could be someone who has, you scrape from LinkedIn, anyone who has posted recently, anyone who has, for example, changed a job title recently, has went to a new company. So having a list of 200 or 300 people is really sufficient. If you say you send out emails of 40 to 50 emails per day, then this keeps the campaign running for 2 or 3 weeks. And SDRs can run 2 or 3 of those campaigns in parallel. Multi-channel follow-up is a really important one. Voice drops, LinkedIn messages, profile visits. So don't just go with just a single follow-up, but really try to go omni-channel. Avoid messages like, hey, I just wanted to check in again. Hey, did you get my previous messages? You will not get replies to that. So see that you get nurture and not try different channels. Email chain is something which, sharing what I have implemented. First email, extremely simple, like 1 or 2 lines, maybe 3 lines, no links, images. Need more details for cold email best practices. I think we can have a complete different webinar on this one. So for this webinar, we really look at a high level, how to set up things in terms of a process. And then later we can, happy to set up another webinar for cold emailing, guys. So
everyone's excited. I love it. Keep your questions coming, guys. But, after the presentation, Carsten will really go into this.
Yeah, I would love to go into really detail here for the things. We can go into Q&A. So for now, we're keeping higher level because there might be people who are not too much into sales yet. For that, if there are follow-up questions, we can go into more detail. But first email I'm sending out, a single question, extremely short. Don't introduce yourself. You have a profile picture. You have your name there, so you don't need to introduce yourself. And then the second, what I do is quite often is a push to a landing page. It could be a landing page on the website. It could be something, a landing page, tools like NextWeave with dedicated landing page. It could be something like the combination with swipe pages. Why I do push to a landing page is I can connect the landing page with, for example, my CRM. I can have a chatbot linked to it. I can fetch and I can reach out. I can cookie the person, and I can know and track all the activity. In there, I can use hyper-personalization. So that's something I can. Let's say I have my first email. I have an image there. I can push to a landing page. I can track them from there. But I can also have a video of 30 seconds where I can really showcase more and really connect to a person at a deeper level. If you don't get a reply, don't follow up with things like, hey, did you get my previous email? But provide value. It could be a white paper. It could be a case study. How have you added others? So you build credibility. You show how you have other things. And that's why it's important that you only target 200 to 300 people. If you have an industry with IT that you've targeted, then you can showcase a white paper with IT. So this is important, that each campaign of 200 or 300 people, target them with a drip campaign. You can automate it with LinkedIn as well, but it should be targeted. Probably 80%, 70% of the emails often don't get any replies. What I usually ask then is asking for a referral. Hey, I'm really sorry that I took your time. It seems like you're not the right person. I don't want to bother you. Is there someone else? And this is this email is great because if someone has gotten 3 emails and now you're just asking, hey, can you refer me to someone else? It means they can get rid of you and they can refer you to someone else. You get an introduction. So that works as a nice way. Lastly is a breakup where you just, I usually use the goodbye from Mr. Bean meme where he's waiting. It's a breakup. Use something funny. Out them. I'll stop here. If they still have an interest, this is the last moment. By then you've sent them 5 emails and you might have pissed off most of the people. So using some GIFs, some emojis, and some fun about yourself is really important. Don't take yourself too serious. Push to landing page. That's it's a really important one. What we do when we push to a landing page is we set a cookie and we connect to a CRM, which means once someone has been coming to a landing page, each time he comes back to our website, it's been connected to a CRM. It means any activity he's been doing, we can track from then. That's why I recommend to go with a steady CRM that has plenty of integrations, that has connections to a chatbot, that offers different things. So in our CRM, for example, we can, if I look at the person, I can see which emails that person opened. When he visited our website, I can see what he did on our website. Where did he click on? I can connect that person via Pixel for retargeting. So while in thanks for the comment.
That's funny.
So this has been working out, and that's really important. Don't take yourself too serious. Use GIFs and emojis. When our SDRs do their first email campaigns, you can see it's very professional always. Professional languages, and you can see if your email drip campaign is going to more funny language, then you see reply rates. So let's go on a call just based on I really like your humor or something. So that's a good thing that you can do. Push to landing page. You can embed video messages. So video messages are important. I'll give an example later. Our video messages, we would really include ourselves. We would not have any stock pictures, even in the personalization. Show yourself. It's the most important thing that they see your face. Even in your emails, have a face. If they see you, if they hear you speaking, no stock pictures. You're not perfect, but the human connection is extremely important. And then lastly, push to landing page is really important because you could follow up via a chatbot. So in some chatbots, what's nice, you can connect the chatbot to the CRM, meaning someone comes back to your website and the chatbot can actually greet that person. Hey, Carsten, thanks for checking out pricing. Or, hey, Carsten, thanks for opening the email with my recent webinar. So these kind of things are extremely important. Chatbots, landing pages, and then really providing this kind of experience. Next one we are having is sales triggers. So if I look at for example, the LTD community, we haven't been looking much at sales triggers. It's something that we're using quite often. Sales triggers really, they indicate an opportunity. They show that there's a pain or a need. They give relevancy, and it really provides a now. In many cases, you would reach out to a person, let's say, do you need a new website? And the timing is just off. You really have the right person in, but the timing is off. There's no, I don't need it at the moment. You get the emails back, email me in 6 months. By then, it might not be warm. You might have forgotten. So sales triggers is something that they provide you the best possible opportunity to reach out. I'll give some examples of sales triggers here. On LinkedIn, you can see who's currently hiring, who's firing. In each country, for example, you might have relevant pages where people are posting job ads for specific job titles. So you could scrape these kind of job ads on a regular basis. On LinkedIn, you can set triggers for people which are currently recruiting, and this is great. If I'm in sales and I see that a company is hiring a new sales department, or they're growing the sales department, I should immediately reach out because I know this team is growing. They have ambition. I need to reach out to them. Someone is hiring in IT, so they might not have sufficient resources. If I'm in IT outsourcing, it's the perfect moment to reach out to. Also, you can scrape a list of, let's say, 100, 150 companies and reach out to them. Hey, I see that you're hiring. You can, in your email, you can provide the link. It means someone will get an email where you refer to an event that the company has been doing. It will look really personalized. So these kind of triggers, once again, in lists of 150 to 200 people, you can use. Funding events are on Crunchbase. Funding event can be on our local news. Funding events can come from LinkedIn. You can see a company is growing. That's something you can do via LinkedIn. It's something we're implementing in Sales.Rock as well, where you can see whether a specific department is growing. If we see that a company is growing, and we know that in the last 6 months they've been growing by 26%, I can drop an email saying, hey, it seems like your company has been growing by 20%. I'd be curious, what are your plans? And you start a conversation this way. Someone has installed a chatbot. Someone has installed a new version of WordPress. Someone has a new CRM. Someone is trialing a SaaS solution. So these kind of triggers you can really using company news. You have a local website. You have the LinkedIn. You can even look at website issues or changes. Has someone done the changes? You can track their technologies that check whether there are any issues on the website. Plenty of lifetime deals for that. And reach out to anyone who has an issue on a specific website. It could also be interaction with you. Triggers could be someone opening an email, someone visiting your pricing page. So this is why the retargeting or the setting a cookie is really important. There are IP tracking technologies that checks who has visited my website. The sales team could once a week go through everyone who has visited the pricing page, everyone who has opened an older email, sent out a proposal. So these kind of triggers, I just recommend to really implement. So these kind of triggers, think about this at a later stage, what you would be using if you have questions. This is my business. What kind of triggers can I be using? We can go through this at the end. Next one, use cases. Social listening, I think, is a really important thing. Ourselves, I think we don't do it enough yet. Tracking for specific keywords, what gets mentioned on Facebook, on Twitter. So this is something that could be connected. You could trigger these things, connect it to your Slack account. Each time you see something in that you have a channel there, social listening. Each time something is mentioned that your sales team's aware, they don't need to spend, it immediately gets into your Slack, and you can follow up. Email tracking is a really important one. We've seen people opening our old emails after weeks. We have seen someone visiting our website as well, website tracking. You reach out to them, hey, I just wanted to check in. How's it doing? How's the situation? And often you get back, hey, yeah, I was just thinking about you. It's great you connected this moment, and you're there in the moment. So that's a really important one. Alerts, plenty of alerts. The most simple one is, I know we are, with the other business we are running, we are in a really small niche audience. And often something gets published across the globe, and I'm tracking on Google alerts, these kind of things. You can automate it. You can also connect it. If someone is there, if there's a mention, a news article, often we would see, for example, a potential client has been done this kind of research, and we can connect with them. LinkedIn has these kind of alerts, they're Crunchbase alerts. You can set them up manually. Pretty sure there are tools for that as well, but this is something, how much you want to invest. Recruitment is a really important one. We mentioned specific LinkedIn pages, customer pages. You can see whether someone, you can track websites on keywords. We are hiring, we are growing. News events, even something that there's an industry event, something is happening in the industry. With that news event, you could email everyone who's in that industry, who's in your target audience. So these kind of use cases you can do. I'm pretty sure I'm missing things. I'm pretty sure you have way better ones for yourself, but spend some time brainstorming and see how you can implement these things for yourself. Proximity of your solution to a particular marketing tech stack solution is a really important one, what Inda has mentioned. In our case, for Salesforce, for example, someone who's using a CRM is a really good one. Anything that's, you might have complementary solutions. You might have integrations for different other solutions. It might be competing solutions. You know that if someone has this plugin installed on their website, they might also have an interest in this one, or they already might have knowledge in this one. So they would be really interested in a second solution. So technology stack is something that is really, really important, and it's often overlooked. So there's so many use cases for this. So something we can have another webinar on, but not for now. So achieving hyper-personalization. making use of all kind of data points, and that's a really important one. What we have in there here, in NextWeave, not just F-name, image, profile, picture. I think there were some nice use cases where it was Pebbly taking a screenshot of a website, then going with NextWeave, creating an image with that, customize, and then actually sending out the message. So this is something which is extremely powerful. Data points could be links to posts, website updates. So try to go away from just the first name, but really have something relevant to your audience. Relevancy. So it's not just having the data points, but ensure that you have an event that you're talking to. This is the triggers that we've been using. So try to implement them if you target 200 to 300 people to have that in, and go omni-channel. Don't just rely on a single channel. Like I said, you can use landing pages, chatbots, email, LinkedIn, in some cases, even WhatsApp messages. Pre-designed templates for outreach campaigns. It's a good one. What do you mean in terms of the wording, how they look like, the design? Just drop it here, and then happy to go through it once it comes up.
Well, the questions are pouring in. It's great. Yeah, once
we have a more detailed, I can go through it, or we can leave it for the Q&A at the end.
Yes.
So here's something, for example, that we have been using is relevant hyper-personalization. So what we've done is, for example, we have company profiles on Sales.Rock. What we did, this is done actually via NextWeave. We had, with the team, we took some pictures, and that's really important that we, no stock pictures, but we use pictures from the team. It means if I send an email that in my signature, maybe there's a picture of me, they see me in the images, they might look up at the website. Like, being genuine is really important. Now, what we're doing here is, for example, we take the picture, which is like how profiles look like on Sales.Rock. Then the IKEA image is dynamically loaded. The IKEA company name is dynamically loaded. So if I send this out to 300 clients based on the company name and the domain, I can completely have 300 variations of these things. So that's something that I can use. I can have a text bubble, Marco. I can spin this one around, and there are a lot more ways in terms of personalization. So there are some of the suggestions. I can connect it with some trigger events as well. So here are some of the things that we have been putting together in terms of some sales strategies on a broader level. So for some countries, email is not their main channel for communications to implement these tactics. This will be really hard, even maybe useless. What is the suggestion for these use cases? So most of the things that I have been focusing on is really it's B2B sales. So anything where B2B is going, this is what it works. It can be difficult is, for example, if you have a real B2C audience, then it can be really difficult. Also in terms of compliancy, like in Europe, we cannot send any emails. We're not allowed to reach out. So direct sales to B2C is an extremely difficult thing. We can, in the Q&A session, give some examples. Happy to go through it in terms of what kind of audience you are having, whether we have some ideas, whether the audience has some ideas, and then we can tackle that. So this was enough of me talking, and I'm really curious about some of your use cases, question answers, what kind of ideal customer profiles you have, what your audience are, think about some of the triggers you have, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Actually, at first I didn't know what really was about this presentation, but it really reminded me of the time that I worked for a B2B company, and I was actually doing calls. I was doing cold calling, and I also did cold mailing, and I could really see the difference with what you're presenting now and how it's so important to, hyper-personalize your email, because at the end of the day, if you're just going to receive an email, people are going to think that it's just spam. And I think, in the previous company that I had, actually, we also use Salesforce. So with Salesforce, of course, it just generates leads, right? But it wasn't precise. So my question really is, how do you because Salesforce, it just, well, with the company, it just generates the leads and everything. How were you able to get like quality leads, or to make sure that you really get the customers or the businesses that how do you capture them?
I think, one thing is the inbound stuff that comes in, and we just be looking at the outbound stuff. I think that the really most important thing is having those lists of 200 to 300 people based on specific events, based on really specific target groups, and then just setting up a lot of these things and going through it, doing the follow-up and tracking. So one email will not be enough. 2 emails will not be enough. Just email will not be enough. There needs to be a follow-up.
Yes.
There needs to be a website. So going on to different levels, I think that's a really important one. And then providing value is an important one as well, via landing pages. So this is where I think the combination with marketing sales team has been, it's so important. If I'm a salesperson, I can just do follow-ups. I don't have any marketing material. It's useless. So nurturing over a period of 1 or 2 months is important. Having a relevant event that you go in there. So this is usually how we would be targeting that.
That's great. Honestly, from what I get from your presentation as well, is that it's not only the number of customers you get, it's really the relationship that you build with them. And, not only are you trying to get more new customers, but also, sustaining the relationships you have with your existing customers. Correct? I think that's important to keep them still there.
The sustaining you mentioned is a really important one. Like the tracking, the mentions is important one.
Yes.
Even with existing clients, if they come to your website, they download the white paper, they might have opened an old email. If they see, hey, one of our clients is hiring, one of my clients has just received funding. Like for growing existing businesses, a lot of these things, it shouldn't stop at we have closed someone, but how can I grow existing clients even further? So that's a really good point you mentioned.
Exactly. All right. So do you want to, I think there was a question earlier, but I think to tackle it again, because it's after the presentation already, which is what is your suggestion for the cases when in some countries where email is not their main channel for communication?
So I know in some markets, especially if you are in a smaller segment, WhatsApp is really important. So this is something that can look. So if you and there's some sort of I think personalizations you can use as well. So instead of a drip campaign, there are connections of how to do outreach via WhatsApp. There have been cases where hyper-personalization has been used in there as well. Similar thing, for example, you can do is in many cases via Google Maps. Often by now there are direct phone numbers. There are tools you can be using to check like which of those phone numbers are actually WhatsApp numbers, and you can put these together. So instead of a CRM that is mobile, that uses email, think about a CRM that uses WhatsApp as a means to reach out to clients. It also means WhatsApp could be used as email newsletter, personalized communication in there. I'd be curious what other use cases there are. I might have missed the point completely now with WhatsApp. So if there are other use cases, what kind of channels are there? Let me know. I'm happy to. We can go through that.
Yeah. So if there are any other questions, you guys, actually, I wanted to say this. I wanted to show this on the screen, which says "Great presentation, Carsten" from Inder, and it's true. That was a really great presentation. I'm pretty sure that everyone was really informed with your presentation. I actually have questions, but they're not on the screen. Actually, they were sent in to me. What B2B mistakes or errors did you encounter that some businesses do?
Come again? Which errors?
Okay. What B2B mistakes or errors have you encountered or have seen with some businesses in terms of the marketing?
Yeah, I think really missing the point of what someone's need is, pitching too many things which might not be relevant, especially at an early stage. And I still do the mistake during onboarding sometimes that I don't explain well enough, like what are we offering? How does it help? And I completely missed the point. I would offer something which is not relevant. So this has happened and it's still happening from time to time. So too much talking about myself, too much talking about the company, and not making it enough about them. So in many cases, like, you need to flip around, even if you get a reply to some of those messages, in which situation are they in? And this is still something I'm struggling with often. Let me think of other mistakes that I'm doing. I think sometimes it's sloppiness as well, not tracking everything sufficiently. And I'm pretty sure I've missed out on businesses because I have not done enough tracking. I have not followed up on activities that happened on a website. So I'm pretty sure I've lost because I haven't been listening to triggers. I haven't been listening to activities. And I think those are the easiest if things. Cold outreach is extremely difficult, but listening to someone who has come back to your website, who has opened a newsletter, I'm pretty sure I've missed out on a lot of business there.
No, but it's all right. I mean, there's progress, and I'm glad that you shared this with all of us, because I'm pretty sure that, people will take this to heart, and, they will really work on improving their businesses and for themselves as well. There's another question. This is more for Sales.Rock. Ever since your launch in late 2018 or early 2018, it has truly grown. So what were the factors that really changed the game for establishing your company? And I also looked through your website, and you're partnered up with a lot of great other companies. Oh, I'm sorry, Carsten, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, so what the question is? Wait, let me get. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. What were the factors that really changed the game for establishing Sales.Rock and, building relationships with everyone in the world?
I think what I saw is when I set up my first company, like, I had no sales experience. I studied aerospace. I wasn't the smartest kid there, so I started my first company, and I knew like nothing, no marketing, no business. So something how I started really is like, how can I look at data and grow sales? How can I how can I do this? And I know there was not much out there where to find different data sources. 10 years back, there wasn't much out there. So I had to start on that on scratch. And I think this is something a lot of companies are facing. You might be in a smaller scale. You don't know where to get your data from. You don't know how to use the data. So I think what has been going great is having this like 10 or 11 years of experience, starting from scratch, and now being able to offer this kind of value, this knowledge. It's not just about the data we're having. It's not just about some of the integrations, but knowing that there are customers which are in the same situation, that doing a lot of stuff manually, running still into the same issues, and actually building up now a community that supports entrepreneurs, agencies, but also mid-market companies. You talk to bigger companies of 50 to 250 people, and you think of those companies, they must have figured out. You have a discussion with the sales team there, and most of the things are being done manually. The emails are awful. So there's a lot of improvement in there. So if you are in any of these things where you have these kind of things, just sharing this kind of knowledge, I think in a lot of cases, we would not get into these kind of big clients by showcasing our product, but we know they see that we understand the issues they're facing, the bottlenecks, that we pinpoint what are the issues they're having and how they could be solved. In most cases, then after a couple of weeks later, they would just come back to us and they say, hey, can you tell us more about Sales.Rock, how this exactly works? Just pinpointing. And this is why the ideal customer profiles are extremely important, because you can really get into their position. And from there, actually, in most cases, they will come back to you.
Great. Okay. I also have another question here. Some of them are not sending it through the Facebook comment, so don't be shy, guys. Don't be shy. We're all family here. They're just sending it through me directly. How can we tell which triggers are relevant for any business? How can we tell which triggers are relevant for the business?
I think it really depends on it. Segment your ideal customer profile. Okay, think about where are they active. See where can you find them. Check on their website that they're doing, and then you can define triggers which are relevant. And it really depends on the audience. What is important? Like, let's say you have a client that for 6 months he hasn't reached out. Then there's a moment that happened in the company that person has reached out. They have hired a new senior person. They change from Azure to AWS. They went from WordPress to a different CMS management system. So you can really pinpoint everything that has happened in your business, why a client has gotten back to you, what has happened, and then you collect this kind of information, and from there you can brainstorm further.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. I've got a question on the screen. I think someone from the Saastronautics team also wanted to ask. Carsten, with these great tactics, which one is the most important for you and which one helped your business the most? That's a great question. It really is.
I think something which has been of really, really big value for us is when I sent out a cold email, let's say we have a chatbot on our website. And when someone opens it with the chatbot, I can cookie that person. So like really the biggest value is that someone like being able to track a person back on the website. So this is the thing which I can really recommend that everyone should be doing. You get information about what this person is doing. You can get information which email he opens. So this kind of information is essential. And I think we've won a lot of deals, or even we grew a lot of business by seeing what kind of actions that person is doing. We're using Zoho CRM, and there are plenty of other CRMs that are doing it. But this side kind of insights, it gives you really insights on what the company is doing, where are they at, what's the person doing. I think this is something that I can just recommend doing.
Yeah, so it's really important to just really study them and observe how you can communicate with them properly. Our next question is from Vincent Robert, and his question is, do you think we really need email template design to boost our campaign?
Email templates is something that I've barely used. Like when I did cold emails, I've used email templates for inspiration in terms of humor, how to implement humor, these things of like inspiration, asking for referral at the end. But I would never use like myself any standard templates for the outreach. I would get inspiration, but at the end, I would not use and go with email templates. Basically, you will lack a lot of customization in there. Anything where you use templates, as soon as templates go online, it's being used by so many people. So I think you do a better job just going with a different way.
That's great. Another user said their name can't be seen on screen. I think it's more of like a statement. Great point as well. In Korea, email is not the communication channel of choice, but we have messengers, for example, Kakao, that can be used just like email marketing. So I think that really brings back to the point of Carsten of, getting to know your customers and knowing what they use more, and what would be the best way to communicate with them.
I think here again, I think in the Netherlands, for example, some businesses start doing more WhatsApp. So that's why I think it's really important that you capture, for example, mobile phone numbers. I'm not completely aware how Kakao works, whether it goes based on the mobile phone number, how it works. I don't know. What I would suggest, if there's specific messengers that you have or other tools of communications in your country, there might be CRMs or there might be things that integrate with these kind of messengers. And I'm pretty sure that you can implement these kind of automations in there. The follow-up messages, the personalization, it doesn't have to be via email. Like email is just a mean of how it's being transported, but probably the kind of tracking you can do with different messengers as well. I have to acknowledge that I'm lacking the knowledge for different country-specific actions. But a lot of things, the triggers, for example, you can do even with other kind of messengers as well. So you can just take email as one of the means to do it, but plenty of other things which are in there.
Great. And Jareen just wanted to mention from Facebook that this is really helpful to me. Thanks, Carsten. It really is helpful. I'm learning a lot. I mean, it's not exactly the crowd I work with right now, but I think, it's really helpful to, it's the relationship that you're building with your customers or, the other company. My last question actually would come from me. I'd like to ask, what's the mindset, or what is your advice to people who are already in this industry or want to enter in this industry?
The biggest advice, I think, sales can completely be learned. So this is the nice thing. Like with the way you're going into sales, just have an open mindset in most cases. We have people with engineering degrees background. We have literature backgrounds. So I don't think what's being taught at the moment at university is relevant for what you're actually applying. I think sales, also the mindset about sales is not just that you're doing cold calling anymore. It has become really analytical. So looking at data, working with different integrations. I think sales is something which, like, it opens up even anything in life later. If you go into sales, it might help you to grow your own startup later. Honestly, if you're a founder of a company, you can hire. I have a lot of conversations. Carsten, can we use your platform? We're gonna hire an agency. They're gonna do the sales for us, and that's it. But if you as a founder, like, you need to have this kind of sales knowledge. You need to know who's your audience. So I think sales is an extremely important thing. Even if you have an IT background, all these things can be learned. And I recommend everyone to spend some time in sales because you will need that in wherever you are in. Even at a later stage, you need to pitch a specific project within your company. So I think sales as a profession is important to be learned in any stage of your later career. So this is my recommendation why I suggest people spend some time in sales.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I think that's really, sales goes way and beyond not just, this certain industry. I think it goes for all industries, really. And you're right. It's not learned in school, because I remember I had a lot of marketing classes back in college, but it's not quite the same when you're actually doing it already, or, you're actually experiencing it. It's completely different. You go from theories, and then application is, the best way to learn it. So do you have anything to say, or maybe have any events or things that people can look forward to?
I think nothing big coming up. I think what we're working on at the moment is building up this community, community.sales.rocks that we're pushing. So this is why I think our goal is to build up this. The community is not on Facebook, but it's a dedicated community where we want to have, like, a lot of the things we want to get answers there. There are questions about what kind of cold emails, what kind of triggers I can be used.
Yes.
So usually you would need to be registered on Sales.Rocks, but like for the whole lifetime deal community, you don't need to be registered. You don't need to have purchased our lifetime deal for the next 2 weeks. This is completely open. So if you have questions there, feel free to join there. Like I said, you can ask about your use cases. You can ask help about emails. I'd love to learn more myself about countries like Korea, where different communication channels are used. Probably other people are running in there. So that would be great for joining there. And for the rest, I think I just wanted to, thank you, Shannon, for being so well prepared, better prepared than myself, for hosting here. And I think
no worries.
I learned so much. Has been really good.
Thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the viewers that were here today, and the ones that will be watching, because I actually received a comment that it's 4 a.m. Yeah, it's 4 a.m. in the UK, so they'll watch the rerun for this, or the replay for this. So I'm pretty sure you'll be expecting more questions in your group as well. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who watched and, participated, asked questions, or if you're just, watching for the sake of information, thank you so much. And Carsten, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know that you're probably really busy. So I'd like to end this webinar on a light note that thank you so much, Carsten. Thank you so much to the audience for watching. And, hopefully a webinar soon, because I'm pretty sure a lot of more questions will be popping up, right? Anyway, thank you so much, and bye.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.